Hello, friends. Today I'm going to tell you about perhaps one of the most shocking moments in Hollywood history. A brutal confrontation between Samuel L. Jackson and Quentin Tarantino that could end a 15-year friendship with a single sentence. Marvel actors aren't movie stars. Dude, are you really saying this to me after 15 years of making films together? These words, spoken by Samuel L. Jackson in the View studio, created a bomb effect in Hollywood. Watch until the end of this video, because Jackson's response to Tarantino is literally legendary. But what was behind this fight? Why did Jackson react so harshly? And what kind of impact did this event have in Hollywood? Here's this incredible story with all the details. It all started in November 2022 on the View program. Samuel L. Jackson had come to the studio to promote his Broadway play, The Piano Lesson. The 73-year-old experienced actor was planning to give a normal promotional interview. But that day, Samuel had something else on his mind. A few weeks earlier, what his longtime collaborator director Quentin Tarantino had said on the Two Bears One Cave podcast had deeply hurt him. Tarantino had said, "Part of the marvelization of Hollywood is these actors who became famous playing these characters, but they're not movie stars. Captain America is the star. Thor is the star, not the actors. These franchise characters become the star." When Samuel heard these words, he couldn't believe that Tarantino, one of his closest business partners since Pulp Fiction, would describe him this way. Because Jackson was one of the founding figures of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Since he first appeared on screen as Nick Fury in the final scene of Iron Man in 2008, Jackson had been playing this character for 15 years. From Avengers films to solo projects, from Disney Plus series to cameo appearances, Nick Fury was the backbone of the Marvel Universe. Samuel L. Jackson's story with Marvel was actually very special. During the filming of Iron Man in 2008, the producers had asked Jackson to play a small role in the film. But Jackson didn't just make a small cameo. He became the character who shaped Marvel's future. The Nick Fury character was specifically designed for Jackson. Even in the comics, the character's appearance had been changed to resemble Jackson. This was a quite rare situation in Hollywood. Jackson became one of the MCU's longest-running characters thanks to his 9-film contract with Marvel. Iron Man, Captain America, the First Avenger. Thor, Avengers, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Avengers, Age of Ultron. Avengers, Infinity War, Captain Marvel. Avengers, Endgame, Nick Fury was in all of them. These films had grossed a total of $22 billion. Jackson alone had contributed to a large portion of this figure. But according to Tarantino, all this success wasn't Jackson's own talent, but just the power of the character. Quentin Tarantino's critical approach to Marvel wasn't new. The director had previously said that superhero films negatively affected the cinema world. In the podcast, Tarantino had said, "The Marvelization of Hollywood isn't my only concern. The real problem is that these films are the sole representation of this current era of movies. There's no room for anything else. That's my problem. It's a representation issue." Tarantino thought that Marvel films were blocking independent and creative projects in Hollywood. According to him, studios were only investing in safe franchises, not taking risks. But for Jackson, the main issue was Tarantino belittling the talents of actors. According to Tarantino, people came to watch Captain America, not Chris Evans. They wanted Iron Man, not Robert Downey Jr. This approach was both a personal and professional insult for Jackson. Because Jackson was an actor who had played very diverse roles throughout his career, succeeding in different genres. When he stepped into the View studio, Samuel L. Jackson had his usual confident demeanor. He was a professional who had given thousands of interviews in his 40-year career. But this time there was a different energy in the air. The hosts welcomed him warmly. Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and other hosts started talking with Jackson about The Piano Lesson. The play was being staged on Broadway under Denzel Washington's direction, and Jackson's wife, LaTanya Richardson Jackson, was also involved in the production. The first few minutes went normally. Jackson talked about the excitement of returning to Broadway, shared how enjoyable it was to work with Denzel. The audience laughed and applauded. Everything was going according to plan, until one of the hosts brought up Tarantino's recent statements. "Samuel, what do you think about Quentin Tarantino's comments about Marvel actors? He said that Marvel actors aren't real movie stars." That's when the moment came. Samuel's facial expression changed. That familiar glint appeared in his eyes, that dangerous calm that Jules Winfield had in Pulp Fiction. Samuel leaned forward slightly in his chair. While scratching his chin with his hand, he began to answer with a thoughtful expression. His voice was calm and controlled, but tension could be felt underneath. Well, it takes an actor to be those particular characters. And the sign of movie stardom has always been, what? Asses in seats. What are we talking about? There was silence in the studio. The hosts weren't expecting such a direct answer. Jackson's asses in seats phrase had created a bomb effect on live television. That's not a big controversy for me to know that apparently these actors are movie stars. Chadwick Boseman is Black Panther. You can't refute that, and he's a movie star. Jackson's mention of Chadwick Boseman was no coincidence. Boseman, whom we lost to colon cancer in 2020, had become not just a superhero, but also a cultural icon with the Black Panther film. Boseman's death had caused worldwide mourning. This wasn't just the death of an actor, but the loss of a hero. According to Jackson, this was proof of real movie stardom. As Jackson continued speaking, his voice became increasingly harsh. I've been working with Quentin for 15 years. Starting from Pulp Fiction, Django Unchained, The Hateful Eight. Wasn't I a movie star in these films? Or were only the characters the stars? This question hung in the air. Jackson was actually exposing Tarantino's double standard. According to him, Samuel was a star in Tarantino films, but in Marvel films, only the character was the star. When I played Jules Winfield, did people come to watch Samuel L. Jackson, or just Jules? What happened when I played Steven in Django? When I brought Major Marcus Warren to life? What Jackson said was true. Jackson's performance in Tarantino's films had always stood out. The Ezekiel speech in Pulp Fiction was considered one of the most iconic moments in cinema history. Suddenly, because I work at Marvel, I'm no longer a movie star. How does this logic work? As Samuel continued speaking, the tone in his voice became increasingly harsh. I said movie stardom is measured by asses in seats. The Marvel Cinematic Universe had grossed $25 billion by that time. Do you know how many billions of dollars in film revenue I've contributed to alone? Indeed, Samuel L. Jackson was one of the highest-grossing actors in America at that time. According to Forbes' list, the total box office of Jackson's films had exceeded $27 billion. This figure made him the most successful actor of all time. How many billion-dollar films has Tarantino made? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood made $374 million. Django Unchained $425 million. Pulp Fiction $214 million. I contributed to $2.8 billion in revenue just in Avengers Endgame. The numbers Jackson gave were striking. The total of all Tarantino's films was small compared to Jackson's revenue in a single Marvel film. Who reaches more audiences? Who sells more tickets? Isn't this the measure of movie stardom? The expression on Samuel's face was getting increasingly stern. This was no longer just professional criticism. It was personal disappointment. Dude, Quentin, are you going to teach me about being a movie star? I've acted in 150 films. I worked with Spike Lee. I worked with George Lucas. I worked with you. I was nominated for an Academy Award. I have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Jackson's career was indeed impressive. Jackson, who had been acting since the late 1970s, had appeared in all kinds of films. Drama, action, comedy, thriller. He had been successful in all of them. How many films have you made? 10. And how many of those grossed $1 billion? 0. Everyone in the studio was wondering where this conversation was heading. Jackson's voice was rising. This isn't about art anymore. This is about dignity. Someone I've worked with for 15 years comes out and belittles my work. Quentin, when you used me in Pulp Fiction, you knew I was a movie star. When you used me in Django, you knew it too. You knew it in Hateful Eight too. But now because I work at a different studio, I'm no longer a movie star. What kind of logic is this? Samuel was now defending not just himself, but the entire Marvel universe. Marvel actors aren't movie stars? Do you remember who Robert Downey Jr. was before Iron Man? He was someone with addiction problems whose career was about to end. Marvel made him one of the world's most recognized actors. What Jackson said was true. Downey Jr.'s personal problems in the early 2000s had almost ended his career. But the Iron Man role had given him a second chance. Who was Chris Evans before Captain America? He was someone known for his failed performance in Fantastic Four. Marvel turned him into an iconic figure. Chris Hemsworth was a soap opera actor in Australia before Thor. Now he's one of Hollywood's most sought-after actors, Jackson continued. The problem is, some directors can't adapt to change. Cinema is evolving. Audiences are changing, but some are still living in the 90s. Are Marvel films low quality? Billions of people watch these films. They get high scores on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics praise them. But according to Quentin, none of this is valid. Section 10, Chadwick Boseman and Social Impact, 21:45-24. Samuel's voice softened, but his determination didn't diminish. I didn't mention Chadwick Boseman's name by accident. He wasn't just Black Panther. He was a symbol. He became a role model for millions of black children. Indeed, the Black Panther film wasn't just a superhero movie. It was a cultural revolution. It was the first major Hollywood production featuring an African-origin superhero in the lead role. When has Tarantino created such an impact? When has he inspired millions of children? When has he contributed to social change? When Chadwick died, the world mourned. Not just because an actor died, but because a hero died. That's what movie stardom is. Jackson continued. Marvel films bring together people from different cultures worldwide. Shang-Chi in Asia, Black Panther in Africa, Captain Marvel for women. Each is important for different communities. Do Quentin's films have such an impact? Pulp Fiction is a great film, but how many children did it inspire? Samuel leaned back in his chair and smiled. I've been Nick Fury for 15 years. This character has become part of my identity. When kids see me on the street, they shout, Nick Fury. How many kids watch Quentin's films? How many kids watch my Marvel films? Which one of us has a bigger impact? Jackson's voice had taken on a different tone this time. He was no longer angry, but confident. I don't make films to win Oscars. I make them to entertain, inspire, and make people happy. I was nominated for an Oscar for my performance in Pulp Fiction, but I didn't win. Was I upset? No, because that film affected millions of people's lives. I'm doing the same thing with Marvel films. Maybe I don't win Oscars, but I reach billions of people. Samuel's last words created a bomb effect in the studio. Quentin, if Marvel actors aren't movie stars, then I need to be in your next film. Because I'm a movie star and movie stars appear in your films. There was silence in the studio. What Jackson said had surprised everyone. But I think I'll pass this time, because I'm very happy at Marvel. There they see me as a movie star. Jackson stood up and shook hands with the hosts. Thank you for this wonderful interview. I hope Quentin is watching too. The studio erupted in applause. Samuel L. Jackson had defended himself in the Marvel Universe by risking a 15-year friendship. What happened after this conversation? Tarantino initially remained silent, but later softened his position in interviews he gave. He said there wasn't a big problem between him and Jackson, but the damage had already been done. Everyone in Hollywood was talking about this fight. Many actors supported Jackson. Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Mark Ruffalo, they all sided with Jackson. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige also supported Jackson. Samuel is not only a great actor, but also the backbone of the Marvel family. This event once again demonstrated Marvel's power and influence in Hollywood. Superhero films were no longer just entertainment, they had become a cultural force. Jackson continued his role at Marvel. He starred as the main character in the Secret Invasion series and deepened Nick Fury's story. That's how this story ends. A 15-year friendship was shaken by a single podcast interview, but Samuel L. Jackson managed to maintain his identity. If movie stardom is really measured by asses in seats, Samuel L. Jackson was right, and he won this fight. What do you think? Was Samuel right, or is what Tarantino said true? Share your thoughts in the comments. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe, because we'll continue to share Hollywood secrets like this.